Apple really changing the camera design on the iPhone 17 Pro Max? It looks like the answer is yes, and the latest leak gives us our clearest look yet at what could be the most talked about change to the iPhone in years. A new image has surfaced that shows a test case for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and let's just say the design is already sparking debate. According to this leak shared by a reliable source on X, the iPhone 17 Pro Max might be going with a horizontal camera island, something we haven't seen on any iPhone before. This design spans the entire width of the phone and still keeps the cameras arranged in a triangular layout. But because of this new island shape, the camera bump now looks a lot bigger and more noticeable. For some users, this might feel like a bold welcome change after years of seeing the same camera style. For others, it might take a little time to get used to. Either way, this is not just a small design tweak, it's a big shift. So, what's the reason behind it? Well, it turns out Apple didn't just make this change for the sake of being different. Reports say the new Pro models, including the iPhone 17 Pro Max, will be getting a new 48 megapixel telephoto camera with high resolution. But the camera module is now so big that Apple reportedly had to move things around. That's why the LiDAR scanner, LED flash, and microphone are being pushed toward the edges of the phone. There simply wasn't enough space to keep them in their original position. This camera upgrade also affects the design of the phone cases. The leaked clear case shows a much wider cutout to fit the new horizontal camera island. Some case makers are even preparing designs with separate cutouts, one just for the cameras and another for the rest of the components like the flash and LiDAR scanner. That's how different this setup is going to be. It's not just the camera that's getting an upgrade either. The iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max are expected to come with Apple's latest 3nm chips, which means more speed and better battery efficiency. But here's something even more interesting. Some reports now claim these Pro models might actually jump ahead and use an even more advanced 2nm chip. If that's true, performance and power efficiency could take a big leap. As to the body of the phone, Apple may be switching things up again. The titanium frame introduced to the iPhone 15 Pro series could be replaced with aluminum sides for the iPhone 17 Pro lineup. Whether that's a weight-saving move or just a cost decision remains unclear. But it's another sign that Apple is willing to shake things up with this year's release. Another big talking point is the iPhone 17 Air, a rumored thinner model that could be joining the iPhone lineup. This version is also said to use the new horizontal camera island. While some think the design feels inspired by the Google Pixel series, reports suggest Apple's decision was more about internal changes rather than copying anyone else. All of the new iPhone 17 models will run iOS 19, which is expected to launch alongside the phones. Apple typically announces its new iPhones in September, and based on how early case makers are already preparing, the leaks are starting to come in faster now. And by the way, don't worry about price hikes just yet. Did you hear the rumor that Samsung might put a weaker chip in the Galaxy Z Fold 7? Well, it turns out that's not happening. Samsung is going all in with the full 8-core Snapdragon 8 Elite processor, the exact same one that's powering the Galaxy S25 lineup. That's now confirmed thanks to a benchmark result that puts all the earlier doubts to rest. Let's take a quick look at where this rumor even started. There were talks online about Samsung possibly using a 7-core version of the Snapdragon 8 Elite in the Z Fold 7. The reason behind this: foldable phones usually deal with more heat buildup because of their design, so some believe Samsung might go with a slightly toned down chip to avoid overheating. And to be fair, that idea wasn't completely wild. There is a version of the Snapdragon 8 Elite with 7 cores, specifically made for foldable phones. So when that rumor started, it made sense to some people. Using a chip that runs a little cooler could help with battery life and thermal control. But here's the problem. When you're spending almost $1,800 or more on a phone, you don't want something toned down. You want top-tier performance. Anything less would feel like a downgrade. People expect the Z Fold series to deliver the best of everything, and a weaker processor would definitely fall short. Thankfully, we now have proof that Samsung is not cutting corners here. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 will have the same 8-core Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy version used in the Galaxy S25 series. That means high clock speeds, strong graphics, smooth multitasking, and fast performance. Everything you'd expect from a premium flagship. On top of that, the phone will also come with One UI 8 pre-installed, running on Android 16. So you're not just getting top hardware, you're also getting Samsung's newest software right out of the box. The combination of fast performance and updated software will give users the full premium experience. Now, looking back at that earlier rumor, it's clear that it was never based on anything solid. There were no leaks from trusted sources, and Samsung never hinted at using the 7-core chip. It was just the rumor mill doing what it does best: spinning stories. Still, it's understandable why people were concerned. Foldable phones are still relatively new, and they often face design challenges that regular smartphones don't. Cooling is one of those problems. So, when talking about a weaker chip started making the rounds, it raised a lot of questions. But Samsung has now cleared those doubts without saying a word, just by showing what's actually in the device. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 is expected to launch later this summer. Along with it, Samsung will also be introducing the Galaxy Z Flip 7 and the new Galaxy Z Flip FE, a more affordable clamshell-style foldable. It looks like Samsung is working hard to cover every price range with its upcoming foldables. So if you were worried that the Galaxy Z Fold 7 might come with something less powerful, you don't need to anymore. Samsung is sticking with its best chip, and that's exactly what people want to see in a phone that's expected to cost over $2,000, especially if import taxes go up later this year. In short, the full-strength Snapdragon 8 Elite is confirmed for the Galaxy Z Fold 7. No downgrade, no performance gap, and no missing features, just a powerful foldable phone that delivers on all fronts. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more updates on Samsung, foldables, and all the latest tech news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Is Samsung finally ready to bring back its own chip to power the Galaxy S series? That's the big question, and if the latest reports are right, you might be seeing Samsung's new Exynos 2600 chip inside the Galaxy S26 phones next year. After a few delays and a lot of testing, things are finally moving in the right direction. Here's the background. Samsung originally planned to use its Exynos 2500 chip built on a 3nm process for the Galaxy S25 series, but that didn't work out. Why? Because Samsung Foundry couldn't get a good enough production yield. In simple terms, too many chips coming out of the factory weren't working properly, and that made it too expensive to continue. So Samsung decided to use the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite chip instead, and most users were actually happy with that decision. Qualcomm processors are still seen as faster and more reliable by a lot of people. But Samsung hasn't given up on making its own high-end processors. Now they're working on the Exynos 2600, which is being built using an even smaller 2nm process. And this could be a game changer if it all goes according to plan. So, where do things stand right now? According to a new report from Korea's AK Radio, Samsung Foundry has managed to reach a 40% yield rate for its 2nm production line. That means 4 out of every 10 chips they produce are working properly. While this number still isn't high enough for full-scale production, it's a big improvement. Usually, chip makers wait until yield rates hit at least 70 to 80% before they start mass production. But with this progress, Samsung could be on track to reach that goal before the end of 2025. If they hit the mark, the Exynos 2600 could enter mass production by November, giving Samsung enough time to include it in the Galaxy S26 series. How does this compare to the competition? Well, TSMC, the company that makes chips for Apple and others, has already reached a 60% yield rate for its own 2nm chips. So Samsung still has some catching up to do, but it's not too far behind. Now, we all remember how previous Exynos chips struggled when compared to Qualcomm's. From heating issues to poor battery life and weaker performance, users had plenty of complaints. That's why Samsung is under pressure to make the Exynos 2600 a real competitor this time around. So, what can we expect? Samsung hasn't shared many details yet, but the Exynos 2600 is expected to bring better CPU and GPU performance, improved power efficiency, and cooler operation compared to older versions. Basically, Samsung wants this chip to feel just as fast and smooth as the Snapdragon without the downsides. If they succeed, the Galaxy S26 series could mark the return of the Exynos chip in flagship devices, at least in some regions. That would be a big step forward for Samsung's long-term plans to reduce its dependence on other chip makers. Of course, all of this depends on how well the production process continues. There's still a lot that could change between now and the end of the year. For now, all eyes are on Samsung Foundry and whether they can push the Exynos 2600 across the finish line in time. If you're excited about what the Galaxy S26 could bring or just curious about how Samsung's new chip will perform, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you updated on all the latest news, leaks, and official announcements. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.